Fun fact, did you know that the term cooking with gas was made up by the American Gas Association in the 1930s to sell more propane? Bonus fun fact, did you know that burning propane to cook your food is a leading cause of indoor air pollution and has led to many cases of asthma? But what if I told you there's a better option, including one that works well in your camper or van? No, folks, it is not the crappy old electric burner with the coils, and no, it is not cooking over a wood fire, although that is a lot of fun too. I'm talking about electric induction cooking, using a magnetic current to heat up your pans. I think that 2023 is the year of electric induction cooktops in vans and campers. I'm Dana from HD.Adventuring, and if you're new here, my wife Heather and I are building an expedition camper on the back of a Mitsubishi Fuso 4x4. We're documenting our journey building and all the adventures we take along the way. Over the years, Heather and I have lived in many different apartments, almost all of which have had crappy electric stoves in one form or the other. One of the stoves was narrower than normal stoves, so all your pots and pans were really close together. Another one of the stoves was a glass cooktop that was impossible to clean because it baked on all those goodies from the bottom of your pan. Another stove, only 3 of the 4 burners worked. So we kind of have a thing against electric stovetops. So when we finally got to this place where we had a gas stove, we said never again to electric.
But we are pulling a 180 and we're going to be installing an electric induction cooktop into our camper.
Now there is a big difference between a traditional electric stove and an induction cooktop. I'm not going to get into the details, but essentially you're heating up the pan instead of a coil that then heats up the pan. So it's a lot faster, more efficient, and a lot more precise cooking. Induction cooking has a number of benefits for those living on the road. The big one for us is not having to carry and fill up propane and not having to deal with the moisture or the fumes that propane burning generates. But I'm going to be honest, induction cooking still has its drawbacks, and there are a number of folks who've installed induction cooktops in their vans who've later come to regret it. The biggest reason why some folks come to regret their choice to go with induction is around energy usage. I'll say it straight. Using electricity to generate heat uses a ton of electricity. Far more than charging your phone or your computer or even running an air conditioner in many cases. Most folks who have been unhappy with their choice to go with induction are unhappy because their system is simply not powerful enough to run an induction cooktop reliably. But in 2023, the prices of both solar and lithium-ion batteries have come down so dramatically that I think it's finally feasible to install a proper-sized electric system in a van or camper that can run induction smoothly. So I've built out a couple different campers and vans over the years, and folks tend to come to me with their electrical questions about solar and batteries in these vehicles. The first question I always ask them is, have you done an energy audit? An energy what now? Yeah, it's not glamorous, but essentially you need to add up all the things that use electricity in your camper and get a number of watt hours or amp hours that you will need throughout the course of a day. For us, the fridge, heater, water pump, computer chargers, Starlink, etc. will use about 2,000 watt hours a day, or about 170 amp hours. Heather was out of town for the week, so I decided that I would set up our kitchen as a little bit of a test laboratory, complete with our new induction cooktop, an energy monitor, an iPad for timing, and this infrared thermometer. 62 degrees, you're hot. So I decided I'd run a couple tests to see just how well this induction cooktop does for our day-to-day cooking and how much electricity it uses in a standard day.
For breakfast most days, we just make coffee and oatmeal. So I'll boil 5 cups of water and see how long it takes and how much electricity it uses. I set our stove to 1,000 watts, even though it's capable of 1,800. It took about 7 minutes and used 130 watt-hours of electricity. Okay, now on to lunch. We often just reheat leftovers, and today it's last night's rice and veggie dish.
$175 degrees. I just turned this off and paused our timer. We are at about 10 minutes, 46 seconds, and we used 0.13 kilowatt hours, so 130 watt hours. You know, another great thing about this, I've been cooking this for 10 minutes, and I just heated my lunch up, and I'm holding the handle of this cast iron. I'm not getting burned because all of the heat went to the bottom of this pan and into cooking my food instead of heating up the handle and the air around me and all that. So, you know, this just might work.
Now for dinner, I'm gonna make a little bit bigger dish. We usually make a lot of food for dinner and then hope to have some for leftovers the next day. This dish has 3 components. The first is pan-fried tofu. We'll be serving it over rice, which I'm making in this giant pot because my normal rice dish actually isn't induction compatible. The downside of this cooktop is there are only 2 burners, so with this 3-component meal, I have to finish the tofu before I can start the veggies. Cooking this large stir fry took about 35 minutes and used 660 watt hours.
And you know, well, this energy probably comes from a little bit of sun, a little bit of wind, some natural gas. This tastes pretty damn good. It's gonna taste even better when all this energy that warmed up and heated and cooked my food came from the sun. The food is just as good. The cooking experience is quite similar. There's a few things you have to adapt, but there is another benefit, and that's the indoor air quality. In a place like this, we've got a gas stove, but we've got a pretty big spot, so it probably dissipates. But in the confines of a van, the indoor air pollution, plus all of that water that you create when you burn propane, does make a difference. So overall, I think quality of life inside your vehicle is gonna actually be improved by using an electric induction cooktop versus gas. I've cooked 3 meals today. I would say they're pretty standard meals that we eat. So let me add these up. So for breakfast, I made coffee and oatmeal, and that used 130 watt hours. For lunch, I made leftovers, also used 130 watt hours. And for dinner, I made this awesome stir fry for 2. Yes, we eat a lot of stir fry in this household, and that was 660 watt hours.
To summarize, I've calculated that we use about 920 watt hours a day for cooking. Converted to amp hours on a standard 12-volt system, that's about 76 amp hours. We can safely round up to 100 amp hours for days that we do a little bit more cooking or decide to make tea after dinner.
So after a long day of cooking, running tests, crunching numbers, I cleaned up my lab and grabbed some ice cream. I figured I would tell you what I think you need in order to make an induction cooking setup a reality in your van. If you have similar power consumption as us, I think you'll need about 400 amp hours of battery storage and maybe about 1,000 watts or so of solar to be really comfortable. But if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing, am I right? So on our van, we're gonna do about 600 amp hours of batteries and 1,200 watts of solar on the roof. We think this should be plenty for our needs and make sure that we have enough left over for those cloudy or wintry days. In the past, this much electrical equipment would have absolutely sunk the budget for most van builds. But in the past few years, the prices of solar panels as well as lithium-ion batteries have come way down, making this level of equipment attainable. Back in the glory days of van life, say 2010 or so, this much lithium-ion battery would have cost about $10,000 or so. And that much solar would have cost you about $5,000. And the amount of solar and batteries that you could fit in a space back then was a lot less than what you can fit in the same space today. So today, prices for these things have come way down, and by shopping around, you can find some pretty good deals. Like these SOK batteries that we bought and did a video about. These have been torn apart, rated and reviewed, and found to be nearly the same quality as many of the big brands. By shopping around, we spent a total of $3,700 on that much solar and that much battery. It's still a lot of money, but it does seem reasonable to me, especially considering the prices of some of the vehicles that people are using now. With this much solar and battery, we should have plenty of power so that we don't get the cooking equivalent of range anxiety. If you found this video helpful or interesting, I ask that you consider gently pressing that subscribe button so that you can stay up to date on all our future videos. Thank you.
You know, I could hardly even tell that this was cooked by electrons.